right, and now everyone, please put your hands together and give a warm welcome to Joe Cabillo.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'd like to thank everyone who's joining us here on campus, as well as everyone at home or in the office joining us online. My name is John Cabibbo. I'm a course director in the Web Design and Development degree over here at Full Sail. I'll be your moderator for this panel, which is entitled Benefits of Remote Working. And let's go ahead and put our hands together and welcome our panelist, Mike LaPlante. And let's get right into it. So go ahead and tell us. You're both a graduate of Full Sail's Web Design and Development degree, and now you're working in the industry, and you also have your own business. Tell me what your average day looks like.
My average day, I usually wake up around 6:30, 7 in the morning, and get a little breakfast in me, and then I hit the ground running. I do multiple tasks. Usually the morning is my most productive time, so I do all my difficult tasks in the morning, knock that out of the way. Round 1, I'll grab some lunch. From there in the afternoon, I do less menial tasks, meetings, emails, that kind of stuff. Come 5, I switch over to doing my company stuff, so that's, answering any questions my employees may have, that kind of stuff. I do that probably till about 8, 9 o'clock at night, and then from probably 9 to about midnight, I work on self-development things that'll better myself, reading, blog posting, anything to kind of stay up to date, see what the latest trends are. Probably around 1 in the morning, I'll fall asleep and then get up and do it all over again.
Well, it sounds like an extremely packed and ambitious day if that's your normal every day.
Yeah.
So tell me, how does working remotely work into your life?
It's been an interesting shift into the work change. Most people, they go into the office, they do the 9 to 5, they have the long commute. So with working remotely, you have the chance that, in my case, I have to walk 12 steps to get to my office. So it frees up a lot of things. You're able to do more tasks like grocery shopping, going to the gym, having meetings in the middle of the day without having to worry. So it frees up the flexibility and the rigidness. So I'll go out at 10 in the morning, do some tasks, do a meeting, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, whatever it is. I mean, if I got to run and pick up a friend somewhere, I have the flexibility to do that, which frees up a lot of stress in your life. You don't realize it till you start working remotely, that there's a lot of stress of having to go into the office, deal with traffic, all that kind of stuff, that when you work remotely, wherever it is, whether you're working from the house, I work from the beach sometimes, I'll work from a bar sometimes, whatever it is, that you don't have that, and that stress goes away, and it opens up, and you become a lot more productive as well. I noticed the shift from when I went from an office to working from home, my productivity increased tenfold, which has also helped me, in whatever I'm doing.
Well, a description like that, a lot of people are probably thinking, hey, how do I work from home? But let me ask you, when first starting remotely, what were the biggest challenges? What was the biggest difficulties? Because I could imagine there's going to be a lot of distractions depending on where you are. I'm assuming you work from your home, correct?
Yeah, most of the time I'm working out of the house. So obviously you have your big distractions there of, hey, it's 6:30, 7 in the morning. I'd love to just curl back up in bed and fall asleep. You can't do that. So one of the biggest struggles were all those distractions, the TVs, the video game systems, that kind of stuff. So what I did for myself is I stuck to the same rigid pattern as when I was going into an office. I'd get up, I'd shower, I'd have my breakfast, I'd get dressed into normal clothes, and then I'd go into an office. So I have a separate office in my house that's specifically for work that I do not go in unless I'm working. And that kind of helped me break up the day, break up those distractions, because otherwise I'd find myself like sitting on the couch with my computer. I'd watch TV, I'd get a little bit of work done, but at the end of the day, like, I wouldn't feel nourished and accomplished, and that was really terrible for me. And then the second, not toughest thing, but interesting thing for me was I always thought I was an over-communicator to a lot of people, and what I really learned was I stunk at communication. So what I tell anybody that's like, I'm really interested in wanting to, work remotely or try and get involved in it, I'm like, first, make sure you have a really good pattern and you're self-disciplined enough that you're not going to break that pattern. Everybody breaks it, once or twice, but it's not an everyday thing. And then the second thing is, if you think you're a great communicator, you better start communicating more. There's nothing more than, you better over-communicate than under-communicate, because when you're working remotely, whether it be running a team of employees, whether you're working with a team, the only way they're going to know is whether you're doing stuff is if you're producing work and you're talking with them. So if you're not doing that, they're going to wonder, hey, like, what's going on with this person? And I mean, it could be as simple as, hey, guys, I'm sick. Like, I'm not in for the day, or I'm running to the store, or just like, hey, I'm going to be heads down for the next 6 hours. Like, don't bug me. But there needs to be that kind of communication. And I mean, I'm still constantly learning that. I'll have people ask me a question. I'm like, oh, I thought I told you that. But, you know, just kind of slipped my mind. It's like a manager mind. It just kind of goes in and gets lost.
Definitely. So I know one of the things we stress to our students, and you hear a lot of, is business is a lot about relationships. And obviously having that median between you, as opposed to meeting people face to face, have you had any difficulty with that? I know you also own your own web development company with employees?
Yes, 5.
Okay, and not to hold load a question, have you talked for 5 minutes, I apologize.
No, you're good.
But how's that going as far as, obviously you have it down to where you're working remotely. How's managing remotely?
It's been very interesting. A lot of the guys I work with I'm pretty close with, and I had developed those relationships with ahead of time. So I kind of knew how they worked, knew if they'd be flexible enough to do it or not. I mean, there's been a couple times where I've found some guys on sites and, you know, used them for a project and it didn't work out so well. And it's mainly come down to the communication issue. They either under-communicate or they don't communicate enough. And then, you know, they tell me a deadline that they're going to meet, and then they miss that deadline. And I'm very much a person that if you tell me you're gonna meet a deadline, like, I'm gonna expect you to meet that deadline. Like, I'm not gonna, especially since we're remote workers, I'm not gonna sit there like over your monitor watching you constantly. Like, you tell me, hey, gonna have it done Friday, like Friday at 5 p.m. Like, I expect something on my plate that, hey, this is done, and that's it. And if it's not, that's when questions start coming up, and I start questioning, hey, can you work remotely? Is like this cut out for you? That kind of stuff. And then as far as like the business and networking perspective, I mean, I know I usually have like a very busy and packed day, but one thing I try to stay pretty cognizant of is I obviously work from home, so if you don't have human interaction, that can be a problem. So there's meetups, there's events in whatever city you're in, so I try and make it out to at least one or two of those a week. Network, all of that kind of stuff. A cool little networking tip, if I can throw that in there real quick, is if you see like a group of 3 people at a networking event, you can guarantee one of those people probably wants out of that conversation, and one other person will probably benefit from you meeting them. So if there's a group of 3, walk up, introduce yourself, and then you're going to have 2 connections. The person that you got the out for, they're going to thank you, come up to you later and talk to you, and then you're obviously going to meet somebody out of the other 2 that'll want to have a conversation with you as well.
Yes, I've definitely found, and I always encourage the meetups to go ahead and get out. Do you find yourself, is it easier to get, in lack of a better term, get into a rut? When you wake up, you're looking at the same walls. You go to work, it's the same walls. At the end of the day, you go to relax with whatever you do, and it's the same walls. Do you ever feel that repetitiveness, that you kind of go stir crazy and just want to walk into an office just for fun?
Occasionally. It doesn't happen too often with me. I mean, I even remember back to like my Full Sail days. It was the same kind of deal. I'd wake up, see the same walls in my apartment, come to class, see the same walls in school, go home, see the same walls. But there are some days where I want to break up the monotony, and those are the days where I live in Tampa Bay, so I'm very lucky that I'm near beaches and stuff, so I can grab a cooler with a 6-pack and, you know, go out to the beach and just work from there for the day. Or there's co-working spaces all throughout Tampa Bay. I'll pop in there one day and just meet people, and I run a couple other things in the area, so most people will know my face and they'll pop in and say hey, which kind of breaks it up and have some conversations, and that's kind of that water cooler chat you get at the office. But I do it like once a month versus every day for most people.
That's a good way to keep your sanity.
Yeah.
So, and I'm assuming, you know, as a developer and a tech guy, we do have to go out and socialize. We definitely have a habit of not doing that some days and staying inside.
Oh, yeah.
But very cool, very cool. So, advice for people watching this as far as if they're considering working remotely. What are the pitfalls, and what skills do you really think they would need in order to successfully work at home?
So we've definitely touched on a couple of them. You really need to be self-disciplined. Like, I can't harp on that enough. Everybody thinks working from home is this great thing. Everybody's working in their pajamas, sitting on the couch, that kind of stuff. That's not how it works. You'll get fired and axed in a heartbeat. So you really need to be self-disciplined. You really need to be a fantastic communicator. And then, of course, if you're doing anything on the internet, so you need a great internet connection that's reliable and not going to go down. I mean, the biggest pitfalls are, working from a location. The best thing you can do is set yourself up with like a personal office instead of, working from the couch every day or working from the bed every day or something like that. Because then you get into that routine, and every day, you might not be consciously thinking it, but subconsciously you're like, I could just turn on the TV for 5 minutes here and catch this quick glimpse, and 5 minutes turns into 10 minutes, turns into 30 minutes, and then before you know it, you're 8 hours watching TV, and you didn't get any work done, and then that obviously is not going to be conducive to keeping a job at all.
Cool. Well, I'm a little older, and in the industry, I've definitely seen this movement. Originally, going back 15 years, if I said I wanted to work at home, my boss looked at me like, yeah, no. Back then, obviously, the bandwidth wasn't the same. It really wasn't accepted. From what you've seen, both with your own company as well as there's another company you work for?
FireEye Security.
FireEye Security. Do most of those people work remotely, or is there a central office where most people gather most of the time?
So at FireEye, we have a couple of centrally located offices. There's some up in DC, there's some out in California, and then we also have some distributed and remote employees as well. So we have kind of a good even mix. Depending on what you do at the company, kind of allows you the freedom of where you work. So we have a lot of teams like we work closely with that go into a physical office. The team I'm on, we work totally distributed and remote. I know with my company everything's totally remote, but I know I can definitely speak to the trend of shifting. When I graduated Full Sail, I worked for a company locally here in Orlando, and it was all on site. Like they had fingerprint scanners that you had to go through before you could even get into the office. It was crazy. And I remember there was one day where like I had to get some kind of car repair, something trivial that I was like, hey, can I like come in half a day, and I'll work the other half from the car dealership, and it was no, can't do that. You have to be here. You got to take the whole day type of deal off. And slowly, as my career has progressed, so have trends, and it's slowly released. Yeah, you can work 1 day from home, 2 days from home. Now, fully remote. And I'm seeing a lot of, especially in the tech sector, those companies shifting that way of, as long as you get your work done and you are producing work, you can work from wherever you want, whenever you want, and you'll get stuff done. I know I still follow kind of a rigid schedule from like 9 to 5 is when I do most of my, productive work, and everything else after that is menial. But I know some people that work 11 to 8 and that kind of stuff, whatever kind of fits into their schedule. Obviously, some people have families, so they need to take kids to school, that kind of stuff. So all of that needs to play into it as well, which when you're a remote worker, it makes it a lot more flexible than having to wake up at 5 in the morning to get your kids to school by 7, so you're in the office by 8 type of deal.
Interesting. So we're going to have, obviously, a lot of students and close coming up graduates that are thinking about working at home. One concern I hear a lot of is, am I going to miss out from the knowledge base? Meaning, is working remotely something that you should only do after you have a few years' experience, once you know what you're doing, so you can work on your home and perhaps touch base with your coworkers once in a while? I know, again, when I started, I was at my coworker's cubicle probably once an hour, and I think they probably got sick of me to where I said, I have a question with X. But I learned so much from them in the first couple of years since graduating college. Do you feel that working remotely should be something that they should run into, or is it something you should put off for a bit?
Ooh, that's a loaded question. It really depends. I'd like to say it's a case-by-case basis. It really depends on how you work for yourselves. If you know you work better around people, I would say run into that office setting for 6 months to a year and really get that knowledge base, like you said. It'll accelerate your learning and going forward. But on the flip side of that token, you have all those advantages when you're working remotely. You have, webcasting, Skype, all of that kind of stuff where you can be, web chatting with and sharing your screens. So all of that same kind of stuff where you're sitting over your coworker's shoulder, you can be doing that remotely as well. It's just, can you handle, being alone, or do you need the physical presence of somebody there? I know from a developer perspective, we have pair programming, so we'll team off for 4 hours a day, and somebody else will code, and I'll just watch them, and we'll talk about, is there a better way to do it or not a better way to do it, and that can apply to pretty much anything, accounting, business, anything like that. So it's really knowing yourself internally and knowing, do you need that person there, or can you do the webcasting? But either way, I personally, when I was graduating from Full Sail, I would have loved to just run right into remote work. I don't think the physical office presence really helped me or accelerated me, but then I know some other people that ran into the office work, it accelerated them tremendously, and now they're also remote workers.
Cool. Good to hear. Good to hear. So, let's see. Is there any advice that you would give out that I've missed in my questions? I know we're just starting off Hall of Fame now, and it's in the morning of, and we were sort of guinea pigs. But have I missed anything that you'd like to share with them before we go
Drink
into
coffee
questions?
this early in the morning. Let's see. No, really, stay heads down. Be driven. That's the biggest thing. Especially, you know, all of you guys are coming to Full Sail, so you're obviously already driven to a point. But that'll be the biggest thing you can take away and continue through your career is constantly stay driven, constantly be learning. You might think, yeah, cool, I'm going to Full Sail. After that, I'm going to be done. It's not the case. Like, I'm still learning something every day, hopefully, if not every week. Because you always want to be learning this industry, whatever industry you guys are in, it's constantly going to be changing. And if you're not learning, you're going to fall behind, and then you're going to be that guy in a desk job that hates your life for the rest of your career. So yeah, I mean, that's probably the biggest thing I can say. And then from a networking perspective, I can speak to it personally. I love what I do and where I'm at in my career. As much as what I know has gotten me where I'm at, it's really who I'm knowing. So networking, I'm sure your professors and stuff harp on this a lot. Network. It's really about who you know and, you know, not what you know is what I like to say. As everybody, you know, you're all going to school together, you're all learning the same stuff, so you have that level playing field. So it's about who you've made the connections with while you're in school. Have you gone out, tried to do internships, that kind of stuff, because that'll, you know, progress you tenfold versus, you know, having the same level playing field. I mean, I keep in touch with my professors still from Full Sail. I'm going to networking events in Tampa. I come to networking events here in Orlando. I'm trolling, you know, Twitter, all of that kind of stuff just to see, hey, is there a new business connection that I can make? And even if it doesn't benefit you immediately, I mean, you can play the long game of, you know, it could be like a 5-year play. There's stuff coming to fruition. I made a connection, you know, 6 years ago, and we're just starting now to work together, and it's going to be a very fruitful business relationship. But that's a long game, and we just stayed in touch, and, you know, paths never really crossed and never synced up, and now it's finally come around, and it's something to see.
That's good to hear. I know with a lot of working remotely from home, we also have a lot of students now working from home, and they're probably following the exact same challenges that you are, trying to focus, trying to stay on top of stuff, trying to manage their time, because that TV, that video game, that everything is always there, and it is a matter of discipline.
Yeah. So with that, I definitely I like things planned out. I'm a planner. So every morning I'll write out like a task list of things I want to do. I'll time box it. So I say, hey, I think this task will take me 2 hours, and I'll have all of that. And at the end of the day, I'll review that task list. And then I have some programs on my computer that throw up warnings every like 2 hours of like, hey, did you get this thing done? There's techniques out there like the Pomodoro technique to kind of keep yourself paced. The other key with, you know, working remotely that most people don't think about, even in an office job, is you still need to get up and exercise. So I'll do like 50 minutes of work, and then 10 minutes I'll get up and just, even if it's just walk around my house, just to get the blood flowing again, get the head flowing, because especially in technical work with what I do, everybody says, you know, working long hours, you're not going to get stuff accomplished. And to a sense, that's very true if you're working on some kind of crazy task. They say sleep on it, and the next morning you solve it right away. Can't tell you how many times that's happened to me. But even getting up and getting that blood flowing again, you know, something I could have been staring at and will be solved almost instantaneously as well. And it sounds stupid, but it's the truth.
I know personally, working from home, my gym probably hates me because I'm there more than they want me to be. But I've actually, like you said, solved a lot of problems, development problems, while either on the treadmill or just waking up in the morning.
Oh yeah.
The subconscious keeps going with that.
And gym is an important thing for remote working or working in general, but especially working from remote, because you have the temptations of a fridge. Like I have a fridge in my office, so it's really easy to access food, sodas, all this kind of unhealthy stuff. So having a gym membership, like my gym's a mile from my house, so it's super great. They hate me as well because I'm there way too frequently. But staying healthy, you'll appreciate it. Your mind will appreciate it. You'll be more energized if you work out in the morning before you start your day. Like I try and do a morning and like an afternoon workout as well, and it just kind of keeps you going. Because most of the time you're either sitting in a chair doing, you know, technical work all the time. Some people now have gotten fancy with standing desks and they're standing all day. But regardless of whether you're standing or sitting, you still need that movement and to stay healthy and that kind of stuff.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, at this time, we definitely have a few minutes to take some questions from our audience. So if you do have a question, please raise your hand and a microphone will be brought to you so we can go ahead and make sure that voice carries over to our remote people watching this. And if you are online, please direct your questions to the online moderator, who will do her best to go ahead and accommodate you with that. So, any questions?
There we go.
I'll let the microphone people run around with that.
Just getting worried somebody was snoring over here.
Hi. What about since you can work remotely, when you take vacations, do you take your laptop as well, or do you completely shut yourself off to the world?
That is a very fine line. So I was recently on a vacation down in the Bahamas where I did take off of work. But I left my laptop at home, but we're so connected I have my phone. So I checked in, but what I would say is, and I'm a terrible proponent of this because I just told you I checked in, is if you're taking a vacation, totally disconnect and let your mind rest, because I came back and I was still hitting the ground running. But that disconnect is also healthy for you. Everybody needs a break. Your brain can't be on 24/7, 365 days a year. It's just impossible. Like, you need that break. That's why companies work in vacation time. Nowadays, especially in the tech sector, a lot of those companies are going to like what they call flexible time off policies. So you take it as you need it. And that's why they're there, because they know like everybody needs to recharge, especially when you work from home, like I mentioned earlier, you're way more productive. You're not sitting in traffic for usually like an average of 3 hours a day. So that's 3 extra hours that you're working and doing stuff for, whether it's your company or your own company. So definitely take that vacation time, totally cut off and just relax and enjoy wherever you're going.
One thing I'll add to that, cruises. They can't reach you if they want to. Well, they probably could.
I was going to say, hold on now. I'm terrible at this.
But anyway, one thing is always to have a backup. Have someone either at your company or someone who can troubleshoot the things that you would normally do. So there at least is a go-to guy as opposed to them trying to track you down on a cruise ship or on a beach in the Bahamas.
Oh, yeah.
Hello, my name is Jamie Banty. I'm an entertainment business master's student. My question is more about the financial side of working remotely. Somebody who's just starting out, do you find that if they're offered a remote position, do they miss out on things like benefits, paid time off, or even sacrifice in pay?
So for my position specifically and others that I know, you're still considered an employee. So you still get all your benefits, you still get all your vacation time, you still have the flexibility. I know some companies will also help even pay for your internet or your phone line because you're working out of the house. So I don't see any issues there. The advantage to working remotely is, you hear a lot of people will just take a sick day because they need the mental health day, they need the break. You're working from home, so you usually don't need that as much because there's not as much monotony of I have to wake up, I have to go into the office again. But I haven't seen a case too much where it's like, oh, you get to work from home, we're giving you no benefits, we're giving you no vacation time, we're not giving you anything. Good luck. Usually companies are going to take better care of you because you're working more hours since you're not sitting in traffic and you're being more productive for them because there's not a lot of water cooler chat or any of the other normal office type of distractions.
Companies are also definitely benefiting for the fact that they don't have to have so much workspace. I used to work for a large corporation that had 6 floors of a skyrise building, and I think on average 850 employees would come in. I've touched base with them in the last year, and I think there's in total, usually at any given time, less than 100 employees actually on campus now that they've cut down their office space and moved to shared office space. And for the most part, the 80%, 90% of their workforce is equipped to work from home. So they get the benefits of that, but if you happen to be that person who just, I need to get away, I need to come in, you have the option to get in. So they're going with that balance.
Hi. I've heard a lot about how one maintains a job and how the job is done remotely, but what would you say are the differences between actually getting a job, like job interviews and such, remotely?
So I know specifically in the tech sector, there's a lot of jobs out there or websites out there like Authentic Jobs, We Work Remotely, those types of websites that'll list remote type of positions that are available. And then at that point, the interview process for a remote job versus a on-site job is pretty much the same, at least from my experience. I haven't seen too much difference. I still have a phone screen with you. We chat. If that phone screen goes really well, I'll probably pull in one of my technical guys. Then you'll have me, a technical guy. We'll be talking with you. We'll talk through some technical things to make sure you're up to date with what you say you're up to date with. From there, I'll send you some kind of technical challenge. I'll say, hey, like, this challenge should probably take you 4 hours or whatever. It's usually like an hour's worth of a challenge. Take as long as you need on it. Like, I know you still have like a daily job, so you're probably going to be doing this on nights and weekends. After that, I just expect to see it by like Friday. If we have this conversation on Monday, send it to me. I'll review it. We'll probably have another phone chat. From there, I know I personally like to say, hey, like, this is why we're going to move forward with you, or hey, this is why you're not right at the time. Like, I don't want to leave you hanging and just never hear back from you. And then from there, you know, it's just kind of rolling at that point. And I know on-site interviews are kind of the same thing from stuff I've done. We've come in, I've had a one-on-one with the hiring manager, then one-on-one with the hiring manager and one of his staff. And then from there, I've had interviews where I just get thrown in a conference room with the entire team, and they're just throwing questions at me on a whiteboard. I'm filling it out. And then from there, I know whether I'm moving forward or not moving forward with them. So it's kind of the same process. You just do it remotely and through the other processes versus on-site.
Let's see.
Okay,
any
good
other-
morning. This is a question from one of our online viewers, and he would like to know what are some of the tools or programs you use as a professional in your business that help you manage your remote business and clients?
Good question.
Good question. The biggest tool that I really love is some type of like management board. So I stick with Trello for all my tasks. I have, you know, pending, ready, that kind of stuff, and it just flows through, and every day I look at that board and we kind of move through that. My employees have access to that board, so they know all the tasks that are ready. There's also Basecamp, which is a project management tool, so I allow my clients into that. So between those two tools, that kind of really self-manages everything, and then after that, email is still, as much as I hate to say this, a big proponent for things. And between those three, and then I have my normal development software type of stuff. But those are really the three I use day in and day out, without a doubt.
Just to add on that, definitely email. Email is the biggest. Evernote is another great one, especially because you can share notes with people, especially if you're documenting a process and what you've done. You can go ahead and share your notes with your entire team or even your client like that. And then, of course, I've seen a lot more interviews being done now over Skype or some type of video chat software, because there's only so much you can get through text. And you can look at a resume and you can see so much, or I can work with you every day and I can type you stuff. Occasionally that emotional connection, that's actually seeing them and looking into their eyes, is definitely something that some people need. And I've seen a lot more people using Skype for business now.
I've seen people, when I'm interviewing them, resume looks fantastic. It's all good and dandy, and then I get on like a Skype interview and they don't know anything, and like somebody else had interviewed for them on the phone interview. They had sent somebody else's resume, and then by the time they got to it, I caught them. So that's why, like, my process, back to your point, kind of takes all that into play, just to make sure we're screening the right person.
And in my experience, we definitely stress having a good resume and obviously branding yourself and have a good image of yourself, you know, here at Full Sail going out there. But in the past, I've definitely seen great resumes and have been disappointed. And I've seen resumes that had, you know, one or two glimmers that I went, it's probably not, but I need to interview someone, and they were fantastic.
Yep.
So having a good resume, having a good branding of yourself is definitely very important. Let's see.
Hi. I was wondering, to bounce off the other two, instead of like if you're trying to hire someone, how do you get like your clients? Is your business strictly online, or do you have a storefront or anything?
I do not have a physical storefront. A lot of business either comes through like word of mouth connections or the networking events that I go to. Nowadays, a lot of the stuff I get is referrals. So that either comes through personal connections, the online contact forms that I have, and then from there, I have like a questionnaire I have them fill out to kind of weed stuff out because we're constantly busy. So I want to make sure I'm working with the right type of people that I want to work with as well. So I find myself turning away more clients than accepting projects nowadays as well with that. I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Actually, that was perfect. Nothing to add to that one. So, any more questions? I think we have one right over here.
Slide out there.
You mentioned something about as far as finding work for remote work. You mentioned Authentic Jobs. Is that like a website, Authentic Jobs?
Yeah, it's a Authentic Jobs is one. There's one called We Work Remotely. There's also one called remotework.io. And all they do is every day they just list jobs that are remote jobs. Authentic Jobs is a mix of remote jobs as well as on-site jobs and full-time and part-time type of deal, so you can kind of sort through all those. And then they range from, your startup type of companies all the way through your established, Fortune 500 type of companies that are looking for employees. So that's always a good place to start. Obviously, if you're a campus student, career development and career resources, they help tremendously. That's how I got my first job after graduation. And staying in touch with them will be a key resource. And then any networking you can do as well will still be beneficial.
Definitely, and also remember there's a difference between 1099/temp work, which a lot of us developers will do, and obviously permanent jobs. So look for the difference on there. I've had most of my temp work has been remotely over my career. However, I have had a few situations. Had a situation out in Tampa where I got a phone call on Friday afternoon going, our DBA won the lotto. No lie. Can you start Monday?
Yeah, hey.
And Monday morning, I was actually out in Tampa. They wanted me in the office learning from this guy because he gave him 2 days, and then he moved on. And I basically took the temp position for 3 months until they found someone permanent. Not that I don't love Tampa, but that commute was a killer, doing it every morning.
I did it for a while. I was commuting from Orlando to Tampa for a job at one point, and it was killer. But to your point as well, going back to that, don't be afraid of like the 1099 versus like the W-2 work. I know there's like this unspoken myth of like if you change jobs every 6 months, it looks terrible. Nowadays, it's especially more common, especially in tech work. And then if you have that little word remote on your resume, employers love that because they know you're driven, they know you're self-disciplined, and they know you can communicate and get stuff done. So it's actually a benefit to you if you can do that as well. I know some people come up to me and ask me that, and they're like, well, I'm afraid of like 1099 work because it's not full-time, or I'm afraid because of this reason or that reason. Don't be afraid of it. Embrace it. Do it. And then in another 6 months, you have something on your resume versus a blank spot on that resume for the past 6 months. And you can say, hey, I also learned these key skills while I was doing that, which just makes you more employable going forward.
And I think employers are mostly looking for the skills they need to fit their position. I had a friend who started, I'm going to say 2004 now, with a 1099 job that, again, they just needed someone to fill the position. I spoke with him last month. He's still there.
Yep.
Still as a 1099 employee, working remotely, and he absolutely loves it. And he doesn't want to become that full-time employee because he enjoys his freedom, as well as the freedom of working remote, because everyone else is in office out in California, and he gets to sit in Florida.
Exactly. I mean, it's the best of both worlds. I know, and I see a lot of times even with 1099s, they'll say, hey, we only need somebody for 6 months, and if you do a killer job, you end up getting rolled up as an employee. Or in his case, I'm sure they've probably offered him, hey, do you want to be an employee? And he said, no, I just like being a 1099. I know a lot of people that do that as well, and they constantly try and bring them on board. So
don't think of 1099 any less. It may just be an extended interview.
Yep.
That may actually turn into a job.
That's usually how they work out. They're just extended interviews.
So,
No more?
any more questions out there? Anything online?
The online crowd.
Okay,
Quiet.
well, if we're good at this time, I'd like to thank you all very much for coming out and attending. And I'd like to very much thank our guest, Michael LaPlante. Let's put our hands together for that.
Thank you guys.
and I hope all of you enjoy the rest of Full Sail's Hall of Fame. Thank you very much for coming.
Have fun, guys.